Kia ora, good morning, everyone. I'm here with the amazing Niki. Now, there is a bunch of reasons that I'm excited to talk to her today. But as someone who is at day 3 of my 90-day commitment to myself to try and improve my gut health, thanks to the Beauty Chef, and I say that because these are the products I wanted to try, it's gifted me this opportunity to speak to you today. So welcome, first and foremost.
Thanks, Kim. It's beautiful to talk to you today.
Um, I guess the best place to start, and we'll start with the obvious, which is kind of this Beauty Chef connection that has allowed us to chat today. So you are the naturopath. How does that role kind of fit in with products? Because that is a level that I don't understand.
Yes, I am the New Zealand naturopath for the Beauty Chef. It is a relationship that I feel really proud of and a really beautiful relationship that I've had the pleasure of nurturing over the last few years. The way this role worked is, or the reason it came about, is because the Beauty Chef is so passionate about personalizing their treatment plans and the offerings and formulas and tonics that they have to share with you. You might see the Beauty Chef range and think, wow, there are a lot of formulas here. And for me, I love that because it's not saying there is one formula that fits all. Your gut is different to my gut, and every single one of us are so unique in our needs that we have a selection of ingredients and formulas that we can choose from to suit our unique needs. And while that can be overwhelming, by having a naturopath alongside this brand, people have someone that they can reach out to and connect with and say, can you tell me, with what I'm going through, what is going to best serve my needs? And what I love, and that's what I think sets this brand apart, is education is at the forefront of everything they do. So I know here in New Zealand, when they brought the Beauty Chef here, they didn't just want to put out all these formulas and say, here we are, like, let's just sell as much as we can. They wanted to put this out and say, here we are, we really want to help you. And we're going to give you the education that you need to decide what is best for your unique body. And I just aligned with that so beautifully, their dedication and care to each unique individual rather than just putting a product on the shelf. That felt really aligned for me.
And just to clarify too, this is not an ad. The reason that I'm doing this is because I have depression and anxiety, and a big part of the correlation with bad mental health is bad gut health. And I've had bad gut health my whole life, but it's never paralyzed me to the point that I can't go about my day. And as someone who medicates with sugar, because I like being at a 10 always, it was just something that I'm like, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. And it just, I don't even know why I was or have been resistant. Maybe a bit of stubbornness, a bit of lack of routine, this idea of doing something every day, and probably a bit of self-abandonment. That's something that would actually help myself. For some reason, there's a blockage there of actually wanting to do it. So I've committed to doing this. And because I was fortunate enough originally to be gifted some of the products, and then I started using it, I'm like, oh, it tastes delicious. Because I thought it was going to taste like dirt, because no offense, but a lot of gut health stuff, I'm like, oh, gritty water, delicious. Thanks. So it is a genuine journey that I'm just embarking on. But how does that work? So your piece to the puzzle, is that something like a service that you offer, or do you kind of like consult for different combinations of ailments? Like, how does that work?
I do. So I have my own private practice as well, Kim. So I love working with human beings. That's really at the heart of everything that I do, and helping humans to learn how to love their body and to find the ways to love their body that brings them joy, whether that be through nutrition or just genuinely the things that light you up, because that impacts your gut health as well. So I was already in my own private practice when I had the opportunity to align with the Beauty Chef. So by working with them, I've had this opportunity to share education with their teams right across New Zealand so that they feel confident recommending the best formulas for the people in front of them.
Mm.
And yes, absolutely. That is a service. If people need to speak to me directly, they can. Or we've created this beautiful open environment where anyone who has questions on the Beauty Chef can connect with the Beauty Chef New Zealand, and then they will come to me so that I can give the best advice possible.
That's so cool. How did you get into the journey of being a naturopath? Because it feels, this is going to sound completely maybe inappropriate. I feel like I still have a little bit of a stigma that a naturopath is kind of like maybe looks a little bit more boho and is kind of like softly spoken. And like here you are, hot as, bright and bubbly, high energy. So I guess I'm already like, whoa, cool. So yeah, can you tell me your journey into it? And are you unique in that space, or is it just my ignorance as someone who's not really dealt with naturopaths before?
I love this, Kim. I love that you're so real and so fun. And I think you're right. I think people definitely have a stereotype or an idea of what they're going to get when they come to see a naturopath. And then they come and you have someone who's just open to all the elements of being human. And that can be quite surprising. I have found every naturopath I've ever met has their own unique story that brought them to this place of passion for
Cool.
wanting to help others, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm.
So, what brought me to naturopathy? I've been working with humans for a lot longer than I've been a naturopath in different roles. So, when
Okay.
I was 15 years old, I started teaching group fitness classes.
Right.
I went on to become a personal trainer. I had hopes and dreams of, you know, traveling the world and sharing movement with people. And when I was 21, I had a really significant hip surgery. Now, fast forward, that led to 3 surgeries in the space of 2 years. And while things started to get a little bit better, about 8 years later, I experienced a really big flare up in my hip all over again. That was so debilitating. I couldn't walk most days. I was on very heavy pain medication for months and months. I was feeling helpless because every doctor said they couldn't help me. And I became so hungry to
Mm.
understand more about the human body. I wasn't willing to accept that there was no other answer, there was no hope. Absolutely not. And anyone listening who feels that way sometimes, like no one is understanding or listening, there's always a way. And so when I was recovering from my fourth hip surgery, after trying everything I possibly could to heal this body of mine,
Mm.
I decided that I was going to leave full time employment and I was going to create my own business where I had the flexibility to still give everything I could to the people I was working with, alongside studying full time my Bachelor of Naturopathy, Herbal Medicine, and Nutrition. So that's what led me to this point, this feeling that I wasn't willing to
Yeah.
accept that there was no answer. There's always an answer. And my biggest passion for being a naturopath is to help people understand that you are so much more powerful than you have ever dared to believe or that you've ever been taught to believe. And that's the place I'm coming from with everything that I do.
It's the perfect time to have this chat. I actually just watched that, which I realize I'm like last cab off the rank on this, but that documentary Heal. Have you watched that?
I have. It's beautiful.
And yeah, that kind of like power of the mind and healing and again, I'm not negating medicine and kind of more Western approaches, but yeah, like almost this two-prong approach is that you kind of have to explore all options. And I'm noticing a big movement, and I don't know if you see this or it's just from the audience I have sort of on Instagram, but a lot of people are going a more holistic approach to deal with endometriosis and other issues. Are you seeing a lot of that?
I am Kim, and that
Yeah.
that struck a little
Oh,
chord.
sorry. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
I am really open to share that. A
Yeah.
couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis
Yeah.
myself,
Right.
and it's a really funny thing. Well, it's not really funny, but
Oh,
it's
but
it's a
yeah.
funny thing that when I was studying naturopathy, I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to do in practice, and I was very drawn to gut health and inflammation and autoimmune conditions more than I
Mm.
was around women's hormones. And then fast forward a couple of years later, I am diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, my life is turned upside down. I literally just felt like I woke up one day and didn't recognize the body I was living in or the thoughts I was having, the wild emotions running through my body. And I tell you what, I got real interested real fast in women's
Oh,
hormones from that point.
oh, I'm sure. And what I yeah, and speak to this as much or as little as you want to. And again, I in no way want to touch on anything that is uncomfortable, but I guess as someone who obviously wants the treatment, wants the goods, and is experiencing the pain yourself, have you found some kind of healing through the science and the things that you're learning through naturopath?
Yeah, I have. And I guess where that led me is that I've taken such a deep dive on that, again,
Cool.
another experience. We never know what life is going to bring us. We never know what life is going to deliver. That this became this whole other exploration of I can't live like this anymore and I can't feel this amount of pain anymore. And I think as humans, that's where our biggest drive and motivation comes, not when things are going well, but when things are going really wrong. That's when we're really motivated to seek answers. And then that started attracting a lot of by sharing my story, that started attracting people who also needed help with the same thing. People all of a sudden saying, "Me too, please help me." Literally, please help me. And so, through my own journey and working with other women who may also have been diagnosed with the same condition but be experiencing very different
Mhm.
symptoms too, I have certainly started to see a trend that loving our gut and our nervous system is usually always the place to start. I certainly know, and they are a chicken and egg type thing as well. Like when the nervous system is so wired, that has such a direct impact on the gut. But when the gut is not at its optimal health, it can make us feel more overwhelmed and stressed too. And all of them trigger pain. So it's not a straightforward, easy answer, that's for sure. But what I can say is that if you are going through endometriosis, there is a place for all of it. There is a place for medicine and surgery where it serves your unique needs. And
Mhm.
there is a place for everything else that comes with that. As a naturopath, we were very much trained to have an integrative approach. So when you said before about medicine, thank goodness
Mhm.
for some of the things that we have access to in modern medicine, for sure. I had an excision surgery. So I had a big surgery a couple of years ago now. And that was kind of a day one for me, a day one for the rest of my life, and a little bit of a whoo, I can't take this beautiful body for granted. Um, I'm going to have to love her harder than I've ever loved her before. And that's going to have to be a non negotiable. And so I know that when I am working with beautiful humans going through the same thing, they will all say, when I am most stressed and overwhelmed, that is where my symptoms present themselves the most too. And all of a sudden, there's no space for I'm too busy to look after myself. And if any of you are hearing that and thinking, you don't understand my life, I don't. But I do understand that some level of love for your body is now going to be a non negotiable for long term healing. So I made it a non negotiable to sleep more, to be more aware of how important it was to nurture my gut. So, for example, in the Beauty Chef range, I'm like a daily advocate for gut primer for ongoing love and nurturing of the actual gastrointestinal wall and lining. And joy is the most powerful thing that I could advocate for sprinkling into your life. It's not a very joyous thing to be going through in your body, whether it's endometriosis or anything painful in your
Mhm.
life. But often, as humans, we don't run towards joy, we run away from pain. And so for me, that's how I kind of went on my joy journey and why I speak about it so much. We have to find things that light us up every
Mm.
single day. They're powerful ingredients to long-term healing as well. And asking for help. Like
Yeah.
asking for help. If you don't know where to start, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Are you seeing, and this might be my ignorance, as far as I know, I'm not diagnosed with endometriosis, but I also feel like the whole conversation around diagnosis is a really curious one with endometriosis. From the stories I'm hearing, it usually results in someone going elsewhere to someone else to, or TikTok to diagnose themselves, because I like, well, these are my symptoms and no one's believed me, so here I am. Um, and I'll tread lightly on this because I don't know the answer, but is there a way to reverse, or is it kind of, as once damage is done with endometriosis, it's more than just a managing thing, or is there a way to improve or lessen some of those symptoms?
You're right. That is a really big question, and
Okay.
it's so different for every human. If
Got
I even start with the first part of what you just said around diagnoses,
it.
we at the moment have a statistic that 1 in 9 women are diagnosed currently sharing their body with endometriosis. It's 1 in 8 in Australia. I recently read that statistic. However, it often takes the average 10 years to get a diagnosis of endometriosis. So I have this feel like the stats could be even
Oh, I'm sure.
higher than that.
Wow.
And I have worked with beautiful humans who've had multiple surgeries, because you can have an excision surgery, and yes, endometrial lesions can grow back. And while they do that, to have a look, inside, we can also grow endometrial lesions where we can't even see them. So new research is coming out where we have found endometrial lesions in the brain, in the bones, in the joints, in the tissues, and they're not actually things that can be excised during surgery, but it might be a feeling like I'm going crazy and no one believes me because they can't see it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So, what we do know is that there are certainly ways that we can calm the inflammatory response within our body and the proliferation that endometriosis can have. But it isn't a one size fits all journey. And I really wish that it was, because it would be so great to say, this is the answer. This is the answer for all of you. But it's why it is very special to get to work with people one on one to understand what parts of the puzzle they need to best live in their body. Because textbooks at this point will say there is no identified definitive cause of endometriosis, nor is there a definitive cure for
Mm.
endometriosis. So for me personally, I had to find peace, that instead of fighting this condition, instead of feeling like my body was out to get me,
Mm.
my greatest peace came from befriending my body, understanding that we're sharing
Yeah.
this home. we're both we're both sharing this body, so we better become friends real
Yeah, yeah,
fast.
yeah, like a shitty roommate, isn't it? It's like, cool, awesome. We will
Awesome.
learn. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
You again.
Yeah.
And it's learning out how to get along and what are those things that best serve you. Is it more sleep? Is it a different approach to nutrition? Is it movement, which for me has been a really great medicine? I know it's not an easy fix, and I know how just hopeless it can feel, but yes, there is always a way to calm inflammation, to heal the body, and no
Mm.
matter what your diagnosis, to still find a place where you are living a joyous life in a body that you love. Both can exist.
Because I guess that's probably one of the hardest things, right? Is like, whilst you might get some relief of diagnosis because you feel, mind my words, not less crazy, but you're like, okay, cool. So there is something foreign that's not great. But then with a diagnosis like that, I imagine too, then that stress of, okay, so part of the cure to heal, to feel better, is to like be stoked about it and be awesome. And I imagine that's a really difficult jump for anyone with any diagnosis, because now you're in flux with information, things you shouldn't be doing. Like I imagine almost then that psyche, which is a more negative mindset probably only adds to inflammation and more stress. Like it just feels like this like horrific, like
It does. Oh, I actually want to go
yeah,
there because I just personally really relate to that as well. The
yeah,
do's and the don'ts. And I'm going to take you back to what you said about, when you find out you have a diagnosis. No, exactly what you said. Less crazy. Yes, that's exactly how I felt when I had a diagnosis.
yeah.
And I felt really conflicted about that when I woke up. I remember my doctor being there and her saying, "Oh, Niki, you were just full of endometriosis. It was everywhere." And I felt conflicted by my response because my response was, "Oh, okay, like I'm not crazy. I didn't imagine this in my head. I wasn't just, I don't know, being a drama queen or not strong enough to push through the pain like, as women we just want to push on through and
Yeah.
I'd I felt like I was letting down people in my life or days I couldn't go to work, last minute cancellations. I mean, that was so hard. But I did go through a part of, okay, now I have to learn all the things that are going to best prevent a flare of endometriosis or the regrowth of these lesions. And some of it feels so strict and rigid, you can accidentally get in a spiral. That if you're human and you do something that's not on that good list, that if you get another flare, that was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And this relates to anyone who has ever been diagnosed with anything or who's going through any struggle in their life, any at all. It is not your fault. It is never your fault. And I feel like we still have a responsibility to ourselves to love our body the very best I can. But when we can say, it's not my fault, we feel this, when we can truly lean into that, now I've let go of that pressure. I'm actually more free to figure out how I can love myself my way, in a way that fits in with my world. And I have done the strict and rigid thing. And sometimes that's at the expense of joy. And then
Awesome.
I've
Yeah. And
dived
I'm
into
type A, so I'm like, oh, if I can do everything on this list, let's do it. And it's like,
same.
and
I
then
get it.
I misbehave because I'm like, actually, fuck this, it's too hard. And then I just like, you know, yeah, have wine or have chocolate, and it just completely reversed the good I had done because one slip up, almost like an addict. It's like, oh, well, I'll burn the whole house down now. So
Oh, and Kim, that's
yeah.
so human.
No,
I
I know, but
actually, I actually refer to that as a syndrome that we are so hard on ourselves. It's the effort syndrome, like what you just said. It's the fuck it syndrome.
totally,
It's so
yeah,
hard, and then it's just,
yeah.
ugh, and you feel like you can't ever get a hold of it. You got to embrace being human. It's wild and it's messy. It's joyous and it's painful. So our health is going to express ourselves the most, I believe, in how you're loving your body and how you truly feel
Mhm.
within yourself. Probably one of the hardest things to conquer. I always say self-love is your greatest superpower because not loving your body is inflammatory in itself. Do
Mm.
you know that 91% of girls and women report not loving their body?
No,
Just,
I, I I'm surprised it's not higher, and I mean that like I just think because we all relate to that. I think
yeah, and me too, from such a deep place. That's the reason I speak to it because I know the pain of not loving your body. And I think when we're overcoming anything with our health, we fight too hard sometimes. And that fighting against what's happening is inflammatory too. And we have to shift the perspective of fighting against this and fighting for me.
good,
And so,
so good.
yeah, I mean, I know I probably just went a little bit off topic with that too, but
We're not on any linear path. We're on a journey together. Don't
yeah, like
worry.
that's the point of being okay with, it's what you said before. You try so hard to be perfect in all the good things on the to-do list. The second one thing you do one thing that you perceive to be wrong, everything falls away. The most common phrase that is said to me when I catch up with a client for a follow up is, "Oh, I've fallen off the wagon." There is no wagon. There's none. Have you ever seen this wagon we all talk about? There's just life, and life is, it is all those things. It's messy. There's highs, there's lows. It's a roller coaster. We get bumped around sometime, but I have found my greatest peace in understanding that sometimes things don't just feed your gut. We all know that we need lots of good vegetables and good nutrients to feed our gut. It's why I love the Beauty Chef, because it's such an accessible way to get gorgeous nutrients into our gut, even when we are too busy to do so. But we have to have things that feed our soul, not just our gut. And so, even though I am sharing my body with stage 4 endometriosis, there is room in my life for chocolate. There is room in my life for a champagne with besties. There is room in my life for a magical cup of coffee in the morning. There is room in my life for carbohydrates and potatoes and bread and all the things that sometimes we perceive are on the bad list.
Mm.
So maybe instead of thinking this is good or bad for me, or this is healthy, instead of thinking, is this food healthy? How about we start thinking, am I healthy?
Mm.
And is that balance right? Because we can feel it in our health
Oh
when
yeah,
our
we know. We
baby's right.
definitely know. Um,
You know it?
Time is
Yeah.
getting sucked into a very strange vortex where it's going too fast for my desire. There's a couple of things I wanted to wrap up on. And this pertains to support. I think it's just I haven't tapped on this topic before, and I think it's important while I'm here with you as a beautiful resource. If you have a family member, a friend, a partner who is walking this path with endometriosis, what is a behavior that, whilst well meaning, is actually not helpful? And what is a behavior that you wish you saw more of because it is helpful? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I can see why you're asking me this, because I talked before about having a significant hip injury. Now, everyone can see that. Everyone can see that pain. I couldn't walk, I was limping around. I now share my body with endometriosis. Nobody can see that. Nobody would know that unless I told you so. So, that pain and that suffering that can come with this condition, it can make you feel very alone. And if I could give any advice to loved ones when you know that someone in your life that you adore is also experiencing endometriosis, just be open to listening when they are sharing their hardships. Even if you can't see it, understand that no matter how little you know about this condition, this human being is working really, really hard to show up at a 10, like you said before, every day. And they will want to be showing up with a 10. So just acknowledging with love and kindness that that person is probably going through more than you can see is everything. And I love speaking to partners as well. Your partners want so much for you, and they tend to want to make everything better. And if they can't fix what you're going through and they can't make it better, then they can feel very helpless as well. So don't be afraid of asking your human what they need from you, instead of just kind of feeling like you can't do anything at all. So you back away, step in and say, how can I help you? Because from my experience, what I best need sometimes is just a hug, just a big hug to know, like, I'm held. And your best friends can give you that, your family members can give you that. Just check in and ask them if they're okay. I hope that answers your question
No,
a little
it definitely does. I think it's like with depression, there's a lot of people who are like, well, if you work out or fitness or go for a run, and often, like, as someone who has well intentioned, but I think sometimes a lot of people don't know that that's actually a push away, like giving someone who's depressed and more things to try or more
Oh,
things to do.
Kim, yes.
And I think people relate to that, and it's well meaning. It's just like, well, that gives you endorphins and that'll da, da, da. But what it does is that person is actually trying to engage, which is very difficult, to try and have dialogue, and then they're just given a more list of more things they should do, which actually creates a reverse effect. It creates a pile-on in a distance. And so, like, even you saying, like, just remember it's an invisible thing, because there is this stigma of, I guess, invisible illnesses that I think is starting to come to light, and we're learning a little bit more. But yeah, it's hard to have empathy for something you can't see, and it's hard to have empathy for something you've not gone through. So
So
it's
I'm going to tie in, yes, I'm going to tie in what you just said, which is you don't need to fix it. That's right. It's what you're saying. You don't need to fix it. Be there for your human. Ask them, if they do need support. And sometimes we're not looking for support by sharing that either. We're just letting you know if we're having a rough day. But yes, in regards to that, some real common ones I might get are, are you on the pill, or are you taking this particular anti-inflammatory? I know someone who just shut their hormones down. That might be another one. Do you know you can just shut off your hormones and that will probably fix your pain? And a surprisingly common one might be, do you know that just having a baby can often help with those symptoms when having endometriosis is one of the leading causes of infertility? And so that is not always an option for every human to, and it's very well meaning. People love you and they want there to be an answer for you. But I
mm.
think maybe that is more aligned with what you were asking as well. And I think both go hand in hand, is just you don't need to fix it. You just need to love the human in front of you.
No, I think that's super helpful, and it's good for all of us, because as someone who even knows all of this, I find myself in those situations. You're right; it's uncomfortable if you, because as by nature we do want to, like, let me take some of your pain away, and here are some ideas you may not have thought of. But yeah,
Yeah.
by design, it's not helpful. You're right. Like, asking how I can be of service or what do you need is a much better kind of question to ask. So, one more
Also,
question, then I'll let
yeah,
you go. One more.
okay.
Um, I love asking my guests what their brain looks like. Now, some people, for them, it might look like a rough sea. It might look like a haunted house. It might look like a garden. It might look like a maze. Like, yeah, what comes to mind when you think of your brain?
I think the human brain is so beautiful just as it is. But if I were to think about what my brain looks like, I think the first thing that comes to mind might be like this fairy garden. It is a place where magic is real. There is beauty and wonder and awe, but there is also the sun and the moon and the stars and thunderstorms all at the same time, all the seasons that as humans we can experience at any given moment. There's the light, the dark, the magic, and all the stars and possibilities in the universe.
What a beautiful brain. Well done. Great
We all
brain.
have we all have beautiful brains. Can we all have beautiful brains?
Well, we do, but that was a very eloquent way of describing it. I like it because you say it feels where magic is real. It feels like you believe in magic in the real sense of the word, as a tangible thing. And I think that's, like, part of your essence. It's so beautiful and so warm. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm so sorry I went over, but I'm actually not sorry, because I yummed delicious it all up. Where, if people want to find you and a little bit more about you and the work you do, where's the best place for them to go?
Please come say hi to me on Instagram. It's Niki._low, Nikilo, or come have a look at what I offer on nikilow.com. I have a beautiful retreat in Ballygadam, Natakana coming up in September, which I'll be releasing the details for very soon. And that could be a really dreamy way to come and love your body with me.
That sounds awesome. Hey, thank you, Niki. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim.